Dads and daughters, they go together like boats in water. They're meant for each other. The wind and the waves, they'll sail away from the storm and make it to shore. There's nothing stronger than a love between dads and daughters.
Welcome to Book Time with Ryan. I am Ryan, and today I will be talking about Daddy's Love Notes by Bashon Mann. A bit of light for the end of your torch. I got this book in 2015. And Bashon Mann wrote a little note to me. Ryan, you are the finest Coast Guardsman I know. Thank you for sharing your experience with me. How great is it to be in a Ted Bell novel? Good times, my man. Bashon Mann, 15. This was published in 2015, and I haven't read it until now. And I think it worked out perfectly because when Bash wrote this, he had two daughters that were the age of 6 and 4. I have a daughter, age 6. Bash was writing these notes up to his 40th birthday and then into his 41st year. And because I'm getting ahead of myself. There are basically Daddy's Love Notes are 40 letters or 40 notes that Bash wrote to his two daughters, Basil and Sabine. And leading up to his 40th birthday, each day he wrote a note to his daughters. And the notes were funny and serious. And a lot of them are about his experiences growing up and how he learned from those experiences. And his desire for his daughter or his daughters to learn from his experiences too. Not to tell them what to do, but just to give them kind of a push in certain directions and let them determine their own lives. So it's great to see that. I just turned 41 last week. No, was it last week? I don't know what day it is today. A little over a week ago. And I have a 6-year-old daughter. Bash is 10 years basically ahead of me on all of this. And I think if I would have read this when I got the book in 2015, before I was married, before I was married the second time, and before I had my own daughter, I don't think it would have meant as much. But coming up on 41, or just passing 41, having my own 6-year-old, I think drove home a lot of the lessons in here. And a lot of what Bash says I can relate to. Not everything, not all of his experiences, but like Bash, I lived upstate New York, although I lived there for a short time. Like Bash, my parents are important to me. Like Bash, I served in the military, although he served longer, and he was in the Navy. He has 2 daughters. I have one. Both of his kids are daughters. 100% of my kid is a daughter. It's really nice to hear dads talk to their kids. Dads, a lot of times, are the jokes in commercials. There's plenty of jokes directed towards fatherhood. I've always felt like it's really important, and much more important than I think a lot of the advertising world lets on. I mean, I've read books about fatherhood, but it's like, I have one kid. I'm going to have one kid, and I want her to know just how great she is, how much she's loved, because you never know. You never know how long you have. So she needs to know that her dad loves her no matter what. I'm wearing my Promoted to Daddy shirt. This is what I wore when she was born, or right after she was born. once I was promoted. So, to Daddy. So there's 40 notes in this book, and then there's some extras at the end. Another kind of 20 notes, but they're shorter. Actually, a couple of them are a little bit longer, but they're about 40 more. So there's, I think, 145 pages maybe in this book. 142 pages. I liked it. I enjoyed. I'm not sure if it's seeing another side of Bashon. I enjoy seeing the fatherly side of people I know. And Bash was great in the way I knew him through the military. We both coordinated our service participation in this DoD outreach program, Department of Defense outreach program. He for the Navy, me, for the Coast Guard. And so I got to know him through that. Bash and I are both characters in Ted Bell books. I think we both got our start as characters in Ted Bell's Phantom. On this channel, there's a whole Ted Bell playlist, so check that out. Am I doing it on the right side? Yes. So we have that. That's what he refers to in the letter, to me, not to his daughters. But it's really good to see his experiences, and I feel like Bash owns up to his shortcomings. We all have them. It's hard to talk about him for a lot of people, but I feel like he is open to expressing regret or pointing out where he learned stuff, and his failures or his mistakes. He wants to use as kind of a guiding light maybe for his daughters, something that provides them. It's not an order. It's kind of like, here are the things that I've endured, here are the things that I've experienced. Factor that into the way you think about things, and you are your own people. Come out and do what you're going to do, but just, I've experienced these things, and you can learn from them if you want to. That's the kind of feeling I got for it, or from it, and that's what I think we want to provide to all of our kids. You don't want to. Your kid's not a robot. You don't want to make them just a clone of you, but you do want them to learn from some of what you learned, so they don't have to endure some of the hardships that you learned from, because they're going to have their own. They're all going to have something. Nobody skates through life, but there are ways that we can learn from the people before us. I mean, that's really what evolution is. That's what history is. That's why we read and write. We learn from the people before us. So if you're going to do that with total strangers, why not do that with your kids? Why not help them along a little bit too? So that's kind of what it was for me. I'm glad that I waited 9 years to read this book. I'm glad that I waited until I was 41 and my daughter's 6, and it's almost like we're shadowing Bash and his daughter's experiences. And you do see a progression. You do see it's a 40-day period, but then after those 40 initial notes, there are other notes, and those cover, I think, a wider time frame. And those, you get to see some changes in his life and what he's been experiencing. You also get little pieces here and there of what's going on in the bigger world. So, Bashon Mann, Daddy's Love Notes, great read, especially for this time in my life as I hit the back 9, I think is the way Bash referred to it, which does sometimes cause you to look back and think about what you've done and what you're going to do with your remaining years. Makes me feel very old when I say it like that. But I admit that I feel the same kind of thing. That that probably a lot of other 40-year-olds feel once they hit 40. I didn't. When I turned 40, I forgot that it was my 40th until my wife the week before was like, hey, this is your 40th. And I was like, shit, it is. Well, first I had to like do the math. And then it dawned on me it was my 40th. That's the first time I've ever thought about a birthday that way. 41 wasn't important, but it was good. It wasn't one of those like, oh my gosh, I'm turning 41. So that's where we are with it. But it was good to read this and experience some of those common thoughts, feelings, experiences with another dad around the same age, with kids around the same age. So thanks, Bash, for giving me this book. Or I bought it, but for signing this book, 9 years ago. And I went to kind of the book launch thing that he had. I'm not sure if it's called a book launch, but there was a private event on, I think it's called 8th Street. It's really close to where I work. And I joined him and his family and friends for the kickoff. That's where he signed it. And it was very fun to see him again, because it had been, 2015. I got out of the Coast Guard in 2011, so it had been 4 years probably since I had seen him in person, and it was good to see him again. And now, 9 years later, it's almost like seeing him again when I read this book, and getting a bigger feel, or more complete feel for some of his life. So thanks, Bash. And if you want to see Bash and Ryan together, read Ted Bell, starting with Ted Bell's Phantom, and you'll see us in a couple books. Have a good one. Bye.
Before he could blink, she was 16.